Happy Friday. We can just declare it to be Friday. Yeah. I think you wish more. We all wish. I wanted to flag a little helpful tool that our esteemed colleagues in the Security Council branch released on Friday, and it's the 2025 highlights of Security Council practice. The website features insights into the work of the Council in 2025, lots of data, lots of cool graphics. It looks at the meetings, other activities on the agenda item, and the work of the subsidiary bodies. A lot of data for all you Security Council aficionados. Once the tenor is starting to sing, you can't sit down. Speaking of Security Council, at 3 p.m. this afternoon, there will be a Security Council meeting on maintenance and peace and security, and that will focus on Ukraine. Our Undersecretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, will brief Council members. She is expected to underscore that the new year has brought no peace or even respite for Ukraine, but renewed fighting and devastation. Ms. DiCarlo is expected to note the recent use of the so-called Oreshnik missile, the second time the potentially devastating weapon has been fired at Ukraine since 2024. Also briefing will be Ramesh Rajasingham from the Department of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. He is expected to warn council members about the impacts of the attacks on civilians, especially the strikes that impact energy facilities, cutting off power and heating for people enduring freezing temperatures in the midst of winter in Ukraine. And on the ground, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that over the weekend and the early hours of today, several civilians were killed and injured in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, as well as the regions of Chernihiv, Donetsk, Dnipro, Kharkiv, Kherson, Kyiv, Odessa, and Zaporizhzhia. This is what local authorities are telling our colleagues on the ground. 2 health workers were reportedly injured in Chernihiv region when their ambulance came under attack while on a call in a border community. As the weather conditions deteriorate, hundreds of thousands of households were left without electricity and heating across Ukraine, leaving entire communities without electricity, heating with overnight temperatures down to nearly minus 20 degrees centigrade. And in Kyiv, repairs are continuing to try to restore critical electricity and heating services to all those who need it. The water supply has been fully restored, while 1,000 multi-story apartment blocks have been without heating since January 9th. And parts of the city have electricity only for several hours per day. That's what the authorities are telling us. Complementing the work of utility companies and natural rescuers, aid workers provided hot meals, water, and psychological support, and also deployed mobile warming centers where impacted people can warm up, charge their devices, and receive essential support. Turning to the frontline areas, on January 9th, an interagency convoy delivered medicine, hygiene, shelter, and solar lamps to Sviatohirsk, community, one of the hardest hits in the Donetsk region, where humanitarian access remains limited due to the ongoing security concerns. And tomorrow, we, along with our humanitarian partners, will launch a prioritized humanitarian needs and response plan for 2026, and that plan will call for continued solidarity with the most impacted and vulnerable people in Ukraine. You will have seen, because you reported on it, that yesterday we issued a statement on Iran in which the Secretary General said he was shocked by the reports of violence and excessive use of force by the Iranian authorities against protesters in multiple locations across the Islamic Republic of Iran. This resulted in scores of deaths and many more injuries to protesters. All Iranians must be able to express their grievances peacefully and without fear of repression. The rights to freedom of expression, freedom of association, and freedom of peaceful assembly, as enshrined in international law, must be respected and fully protected. The Secretary General urges the Iranian authorities to exercise maximum restraint and to refrain from unnecessary or disproportionate use of force. He further urges steps to enable access to information in the country, including restoring communications links. You have been asking me, a number of you, about Sudan and notably the activities of the Secretary General's personal envoy, Ramtam Lamamra. I can tell you that Mr. Lamamra is currently in Cairo until January 15th, and that is to attend the 5th Sudan Consultative Group meeting, which is being hosted by Egypt. The meeting will provide an opportunity for renewed and coordinated international engagements to advance peacemaking efforts in Sudan. On the margins of the meeting, Mr. Lamamra will engage with key regional and international partners. We continue to work closely with all of these partners to support a coordinated approach to ending the conflict in Sudan. And on the ground, things are not getting better. Our humanitarian colleagues warn that escalating insecurity in the Kordofan region is placing civilians under increasing strain, disrupting health services, and triggering a new wave of displacements. In the city of Dilling in South Kordofan State, a medical association in Sudan tells us that 3 major hospitals are now out of service amidst ongoing shelling, and that 4 doctors have reportedly been killed. Continued insecurity and siege-like conditions have severely restricted access to life-saving assistance for civilians trapped in that city. We once again call on all parties to immediately stop attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure. We call on them to respect international humanitarian law, and we call on them to ensure rapid, safe, and unhindered and sustained humanitarian access anywhere in Sudan to all those who need it, and a lot need it. Violence continues to force families to flee. The International Organization for Migration is telling us that more than 2,200 people were displaced last week from the locality of Abbasia in the state capital, Kadugli. And that's all in South Kordofan State. These people were moving towards White Nile State. Local partners further indicate that families displaced from North Kordofan State continues to arrive in Gedaref, in Khartoum, and River Nile State. These areas hosting the displaced families are reaching a breaking point. Last week, our colleague Denise Brown, who, as you know, is our humanitarian resident coordinator in Sudan, led an assessment mission to Alafat camp in northern state, where authorities report that the camp has reached its full capacity of 3,000 households. Between 60 and 80 new families continue to arrive at the camp each day, and they arrive from Darfur and the Kordofan regions. Conditions in the camp, as you can imagine, are harsh. Sanitation capacity is severely limited, with only about 100 latrines available against an estimated need of 800 of these latrines. Local authorities further report that nearly 80,000 displaced families have now hosted across northern state, placing severe strain on food, health, water, education, and sanitation services, and exposing women, children, and older people and persons with disabilities to heightened risk. OCHA urgently appeals for additional funding so our humanitarian partners can scale up life-saving assistance and help avert an even deeper humanitarian catastrophe across Sudan. In 2026, our partners hope to help about 20 million people through the $2.9 billion Humanitarian Needs Fund and Response Plan. A quick update on the travels of our friend Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of our Peace Operations Department. As you know, he's in the Middle East. He is today in Jordan, in Amman. He met there with Jordanian authorities and discussed peacekeeping-related issues, including obviously the regional situation. Prior to being in Jordan, he concluded a visit to the Golan, where he met members of the UN Disengagement Force who patrol the Golan, and he was also briefed on the situation on the ground and the operational priorities of the force. Mr. Lacroix also exchanged views with community members in Quneitra on how the UN mission can continue to support them in these very challenging times for civilians there. During his stop in Damascus, he met with Syrian authorities and reaffirmed the UN peacekeepers' commitment to continuing to carry out their important mandate. Mr. Lacroix is also going to Israel, where he will visit the headquarters of UNSO, the UN Truce and Supervision Organization, and I assume he will have other meetings. And in terms of Syria itself, you've been asking me, and I think it was you, Edie, about our engagement and response in Aleppo, and I can confirm that we continue to follow the situation closely and remain engaged with all relevant parties. We are aware of the reports of casualties and injuries and underscore once again the imperative for protecting civilians as well as the infrastructure that they use. As of yesterday, our partners tell us that approximately 119,000 people have been displaced since renewed hostilities in Aleppo City. UNHCR and other partners on the ground are providing assistance to displaced families in temporary shelters and host communities. Support includes the distribution of blankets, mattresses, and much-needed winter clothing. We urge all parties to ensure the safety and the protection of civilians amidst the ongoing hostilities that we're seeing in Aleppo. Immediate measures are needed to prevent harm, guarantee safe passage for those fleeing, and uphold humanitarian principles. And turning to Gaza, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the humanitarian situation there remains dire as harsh weather conditions are jeopardizing the progress made by the humanitarian response. To help address the immense shelter needs during the past week, our partners delivered supplies to 28,000 families, including 1,600 tents, 16,000 tarpaulins, and 27,000 blankets. They warn, however, that 1.1 million people still urgently need help as rainstorms continue to damage and destroy many existing shelters. Our partners stress that tents remain a temporary solution and more supplies are needed, including toolkits, cement, and heavy machinery to clear debris, as well as sustained funding to transition from emergency to early recovery efforts. Children continue to be severely affected by the cold temperatures and the harsh weather. Since the start of the ceasefire in this year's end, at the end of this year, our partners were able to distribute more than 310,000 children winter's clothing sets and more than 112,000 pairs of shoes as part of the winterization efforts. They also installed 150 specialized tents across Gaza to be used as child-friendly and safe spaces. Meanwhile, our partners leading on addressing malnutrition report that last month they screened 76,000 children and identified about 4,900 cases of acute malnutrition, including more than 820 cases of severe acute malnutrition. This brings the total number of acute malnutrition cases identified in 2025 to nearly 95,000. Our education partners continue to expand their presence with 18 additional temporary learning spaces opening their doors last week to about 35,000 students. The total number of operational temporary learning spaces is now 440, accommodating about 268,000 children. Our partners say that education supplies continue to be denied entry by the Israeli authorities on the grounds that education is not a critical activity during the first phase of the ceasefire. We do believe that it is critical activity. OCHA continues to call for rapid, sustained, and unimpeded access to allow ourselves and our partners to scale up assistance faster to prevent further deterioration and alleviate the suffering of people in Gaza. Quick update from Venezuela, where a shipment of about 40 metric tons of medical cargo arrived in Venezuela from the government of Brazil. Our colleagues from the Pan American Health Organization, which, as you know, is the regional arm of WHO, say the delivery, which arrived late Friday, include essential medicine and dialysis material needed to maintain treatment for patients who need it. It's the first installment of a package totaling up to 300 metric tons coordinated with Venezuelan health authorities. This follows the events on January 3rd when a warehouse used to store renal treatment stock was destroyed. The facility had held roughly 3 months' worth of material for 8,000 patients, which is the equivalent of about 100,000 dialysis sessions per month. PAHO says in Venezuela thanked Brazil for its support and indicated that the arrival of this shipment will help prevent treatment interruptions and while longer-term replenishment planning continues. Just want to note that today in Kenya, on his first official visit as the High Commissioner for Refugees, Barham Saleh called for stronger global support to develop the solutions refugees need to rebuild their lives. Speaking in Nairobi after visiting Kakuma municipality in northern Kenya, the High Commissioner acknowledged Kenya's decades-long generosity in hosting refugees and far-sighted policies that allow refugees to work and access health care and education, as well as financial services. Last year, less than a quarter of UNHCR's needs-based budget for Kenya was funded. Mr. Sali warned that the funding crisis is threatening lives and risks reversing the hard-won progress made. Quick note from our peace-building colleagues: as part of the Secretariat's current efforts on efficiencies, a unified peace-building, peace support office under the Department of Political and Peace-Building Affairs and Peace Operations has been established and is operational as of today. The Peace-Building and Peace Support Office, which the Secretary General said would be a center of excellence on prevention, peace-building, and peace support, will ensure that security gains are reinforced by institutions and development. The General Assembly endorsed the proposal to integrate DPPA's Peacebuilding Support Office with 3 offices from the former Office of Rule of Law, security institutions under the Department of Peace Operations. More information should you want it. New resident coordinator to announce: our colleague Vladanka Andreeva of North Macedonia assumed her role as UN resident coordinator in Cambodia following the agreement from the government. She brings over 25 years of experience in international development, humanitarian coordination, strategic advocacy, and many other things. She was most recently the humanitarian coordinator in Azerbaijan, and we congratulate her on her new post. Finally, some cash is coming in. Not to you, to me, I guess, in a certain way. As you know, beginning of every year, the Secretary General sends out assessment letters to member states to remind them that they have dues to pay, and they should pay them on time. And we're very happy to report that 9 countries have made it to the honor roll for 2026. To be on this year's honor roll, member states must make their full contributions to the regular budget by February 8th, 2026. So I know all the permanent missions that are watching are taking their checkbooks out. Needless to say that given the current financial situations, we strongly encourage all member states to pay their full assessments in full and on time. And the top of the honor roll today goes to Armenia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Dominican Republic, Hungary, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Poland, Portugal, and Ukraine. Congratulations to them for having reached for their wallets immediately. And I think that's it. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. A couple of follow-ups on Iran. First, has the Secretary General been talking to anyone in the senior leadership of Iran?
No, he has not. As you know, communications are quite challenging now. As soon as I have something to report, I will share that with you.
Does the United Nations have staff in Iran? And if so, what's their status?
Yeah, we have a country team. They are, I think some of them are working from home, but everyone is safe and accounted for.
And on a completely different subject, has the United States received any official notification from the United States about the withdrawals?
No. Deji, then Gabriel.
A follow-up on Edie's question, since it's a little bit difficult for Secretary General to contact anybody so far with the high-ranking Iranian officials, is he planning to do so or receive any requests?
As I said, I will let you know as soon as there's something to report to you.
We know that President Trump, he hinted there might be some very strong options of military intervention on the situation in Iran. What is the Secretary General's response to this potential intervention?
Look, I think the Secretary General has been very clear in the use of his language under what is actually going on in Iran and the repression and the killings of civilians that we're seeing, which is very concerning to say the least. At the same time, he's also been listening to the rhetoric that we've heard around the situation in Iran, which is concerning to him, and he encourages all to adopt a path of diplomacy and dialogue.
Would foreign intervention be helpful?
I'm not, as you know, we push for dialogue. We want to see the Iranians who wish to protest peacefully to do so. And I think the charter is very clear on your question.
I also have a very completely different issue here. According